Hi, everybody, and welcome. It's really great to have you here joining us live in the session today. My name's Sharon Rundle-Teely, and I work at social marketing at Griffith. We're a group of behaviour change people, so applying marketing to affect social change. So I am absolutely delighted to kick off the third in the series of No Time to Waste. I've been partnering with Plastic Oceans Australia across series 1 and 2, and we're really delighted to have additional partners who've joined us for series 3. So thank you so much to Jae-Kwan Kim and her team at Green Technology Centre, and to the team at Honiak University who are actually working with us to bring what is a cross-national partnership for Series 3. So together, we are working to actually continue to raise awareness that we have no time to waste. And I'm going to hand across now to Ricky Hertzberg, who will actually be hosting today's session. But before I do so, I just want to actually remind you all, it's best if you keep yourselves on mute while the speakers are actually talking. We invite you to actually talk to us through the chat channels. Feel free to raise the questions as they come, because we'll actually be bringing those to the attention of the speakers and allowing you to actually get across any point that you actually have that you would like to actually get more information on. So please don't hesitate to write into us, because we'll be using those questions across the session. And we will end today with a Q&A session at the end. So for now, I'm going to hand to Ricky and enjoy the session today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon, and welcome everyone, including our special guests, Dr. Ian Overton, Mr. Julien Craeye and Mr. Kim, and they'll be presenting in that order today. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and I extend that respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island people here today. As this is, as Sharon said, the first of our series for this year, you may be wondering why we're still hosting the No Time to Waste sessions. And last year, like many organisations, the best form of communication globally was via webinars. And who would have known that now this has become the norm as COVID lingers and continues to cause havoc with everyone in some way. Our webinars had no borders like COVID, and some of our international participants saw what we were doing last year, and hence why, as Sharon said, we're delighted to be able to be supported today by the Commonwealth through the Australian Career Foundation, which is part of the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. So it's now my great pleasure to get straight into it and introduce our first speaker, Dr. Ian Overton. Before I do, I'll just give a little background on him for you. So Dr. Overton is the Chief Executive for the Greenindostri South Australia. He has over 30 years experience in business, research, academia and government experience, including 17 years with the CSIRO. Ian is also an adjunct associate professor at the University of Adelaide Centre for Global Food and Resources. Welcome, Ian.
Thank you, Ricky. Thanks very much. It's a great opportunity to talk to your session today on No Time to Waste. So I'll just share my screen and I'll start off with a presentation. Now I'm hoping you can all see that.
Yep, we can see it.
Fantastic. All right, so I've titled this Going Circular in South Australia, Food and Plastics. I'm going to talk just about food and plastics only. I've only got 10 minutes, so I'm going to be as quick as I can. But I want to give you a concept of the process that we work through in South Australia. So I'll talk about food first, and this is about getting a circular food and organics industry in South Australia. And down the side there, you can see the areas that we look at in terms of evidence, getting buy-in, working out policy, incentives, education systems and evaluation. And I'll go through each one of those to tell you what I mean. We always start off with trying to get really good evidence as to what the situation is. And we do this in a number of ways, but the diagram in the top right-hand corner is from a large study that we've done around understanding the food and organics in South Australia and how it moves. Numbers like 660,000 tonnes of food waste in South Australia, which works out to be 370 kilograms per person per year. And our curbsides, and the bottom figure there is a photograph of the audits that we do to understand what type of food is being put out into our bins and what type of waste we have. And we've estimated that only 13% of food waste that's generated in the household is actually collected at curbside. The rest, it goes into our landfill bins. So 40% of our landfill bins is food. And of course, that's just a huge loss, economic loss in terms of the cost of that food, the cost of the production, the nutrients, the water content, all those other aspects that make food waste such a loss. So we've estimated about $1.1 billion economic loss to food for the state. However, good news is that we've also estimated that we're 83% circular in terms of our organic collections. So we want to do something about food waste. The next step is buy-in. This is to get political will. There's a picture of the Minister for Environment and Water up in the top picture there, and a whole bunch of community people down on the bottom picture, where we've gone out, done community consultation through the councils to discuss what options are viable, what would be palatable from a community point of view to address these. We then look at what's the best policy we can do, and we start off with international policy. So the Sustainable Development Goals are about targeting halving global food waste per capita. And the roadmap for Australia's food reduction is called Halving the Food Reduction by 2030. So we look at the international and national perspectives, and we develop up our own. And we have a state waste strategy called Supporting the Circular Economy, and we have a state food waste strategy. And in those strategies, it talks about what operations should be done, things like composting standards and directions that the state wants to move to. The next area then is we incentivise the industry. We provide grants, so a lot of the money goes into infrastructure grants for our organics composting. So we have commercial composting that can create products such as mulch and composts. We also support the councils through curbside performance grants and council modernisation grants. And the picture in the middle there is of a kitchen caddy with a set of bins and some instructions. So these get dropped off to every householder to educate them in how to use, then get the kitchen scraps into that kitchen caddy when it's in the kitchen, so that you can then take out and separate your food into your green bins. We also have circular economy market development grants, where we look specifically at creating markets for products that we believe fit within that circular economy. The next thing is to roll out the systems, and it's a few pictures here. The top one is a product from an Australian company called BioBag, which is compostable barrier bags. So these bags go into your fruit and veg section of your supermarket. It allows people to put their fruit and vegetables into those bags, which then supports the whole process, because those bags can be put into the kitchen caddies, and your food scraps can go into those bags, and those bags can go straight into the green bins. So that way we don't contaminate our green bins with plastic bags. It allows, and we've tested and found that we get much better rate of food organics when we use these compostable bags. It's a picture on the top right of a person using those kitchen caddies, and we've done tests and measured the results and found that having a kitchen caddy, you get much more food going back into the green bins. We've supported commercial collections of waste from restaurants and cafes. And the bottom picture is of a process that the City of Holdfast Bay, a council in South Australia, has been looking at changing the frequency of the green pickups versus your residual landfill bins. So usually our landfill bins are picked up every week, and our green bins are picked up fortnightly. But we, through an opt-in process and now an opt-out process through residents, they've signed up to say, now let's switch that and have our green bins weekly and have our residual bins fortnightly. And that means that people are more likely to put food into that green bin because they know it's getting picked up each week rather than fortnightly. So the next step is education. How do people use these? And we do a number of things like media. We have TV, radio. There's a picture there of a bus stop with our branding on that. Food scraps, which bin, feed them to the green bin. The councils support the consumers to understand what type of items can go in the green bins for food waste. We have newspaper articles, and in the top right-hand corner, we have a program called Wipe Out Waste, which goes through primary and high schools, and it teaches children how to properly recycle, and it gets them to do audits of their bin systems within their schools as well. So the last phase then is evaluation. So here's some data of that Holdfast Bay area showing the differences between before and after the pilot project to change the green bins to a weekly rather than a fortnightly. So what you can see, there's not a lot of change in terms of the total waste, but a big change in the amount of red or general waste going from 6.4 kilograms down to 2.6, and the amount of food organics, 5.9 kilograms, going down to 9.5, increasing to 9.5 kilograms. So a great success in terms of getting people to use that system. So that's what we go through. We go through that evidence, getting the buy-in, making sure that people are on board, doing the policies, getting then the incentivizing the market, allowing them to build up the capacity to undertake this, doing trials and educating people to use it, and then evaluating. I'll just now move on to plastics. This is the other area, and I'll go through those sort of processes as well. In South Australia, we have a container deposit scheme, which is on beverage drinks, so plastic bottles and cans. We have a 10-cent refund deposit, and we've had that since 1977. So for 43 years, we've been educating the South Australian population to value their waste. So with that 10 cents deposit, we get a very high rate of return of those beverage bottles. They get recycled in South Australia and get turned into things like park benches, put back into roads, and some other areas like boardwalks, etc. But what we haven't really got in South Australia yet is being able to turn those plastic bottles back into plastic bottles. And the next speaker will talk more on that. But I'll just touch now on going through that process around evidence, as I said before, and particularly around the single-use plastics. So last year we released a strategy called Single-Use Plastics in the Container Deposit Scheme. Let's start the conversation. It was about turning the tide on single-use plastics. We got fantastic community engagement, and we decided to then bring in the ban on single-use plastics, which was the first ban in Australia. And you can see from that bottom picture there, from March the 1st, 2021, we banned single-use plastic straws, cutlery, were prohibited from sale or supply and distribution in South Australia. And we're increasing and adding more items to that ban as we go forward. But as part of that ban, we needed to roll out education. We needed to have incentives. So we've been supporting companies to move and produce alternatives. Getting that education, I said, and we'll be, once that ban is in place for a little while, we'll start to do the evaluation. So really that's all I wanted to say today, to just leave with that. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. There's certainly been a lot of questions that have come through in the chat line, so you're welcome to answer those, Ian, as we continue. I do have one question for you, though. You know, you've obviously presented a range of actions that can be taken to support waste and, you know, waste management, resource recovery. What do you think, though, is the biggest barrier to transitioning to a circular economy?
I think there's a lot of barriers. If I had to pick the biggest, I'd probably say behaviour change. Because we can put systems in place. We, you know, as I described there, we change the bin systems, but it still relies on people to put the right thing in the right bin. And if you put it in the wrong bin, you get contamination, and that goes through the system and, you know, undermines the whole process. So a lot of what we do is about behaviour change, but it's about changing the systems to make it easy for behaviour change. So educating and providing people with an easy way to then do the right thing. But it really comes down to doing the right thing at the end of the day.
Absolutely, and that segues perfectly into also the work that Plastic Oceans Australasia does with our education behaviour change programs with schools, communities, businesses, and we find it's the same. It's just keep repeating and giving people, you know, positive new actions that they can take with rewards and actually, you know, demonstrated outcomes. I also understand that when you started your role just recently, that you kind of walked through the front door and turned around and walked straight back out. And then you were, I think, was it 3 months that you were at the State Emergency Centre to assist with bushfire cleanup and recovery for your first 3 months. So you've obviously had a bit of a challenging, hit the ground running time. So have you found that's also been a bit of a challenge for you with what you've been doing in your new role?
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing about bushfires in my job description, but day one, before even sitting down, off I was to clean up bushfires. But we did our best attempt at trying to recycle that waste as best as we could. So it was a great introduction to the whole waste industry for me. Yeah. And to recycling and getting those products, even if it's damaged wood or burnt wood, to try and get that back into composting and back into useful. So it was a really good start.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. So I'm just going to do a little intro for Mr. Kim. So Mr. Kim is Head of Resource Circulation and Domestic Waste Reduction Team at Seoul Climate and Environment Headquarters. He has contributed to the developing of the Seoul Upcycling Plaza and Upcycle Plaza, the world's largest cultural complex dedicated to upcycling. In addition, he has successfully established 2 major plastic-related city plans, namely Seoul Without Disposable Plastic and Seoul Without Household Waste. Today, he's going to present case studies for us on Seoul's City Municipal Waste Process Plan, and I'm sure you're going to find this presentation highly informative, and he will be presenting it in English, and we will also have help at the end with translation if needed for Mr. Kim with questions from our participants. Over to you, Mr. Kim, and welcome.
Thank you. Yes. Hi, I'm Jae-Kwan Kim, here today to share the Seoul City's past and future on municipal waste action plans. English is not my first language, though I will do my best to make your time worth today. In 1994, Seoul's daily municipal waste generation was 15,397 tons, and a year later, we introduced the volume-based waste disposal fee system, and because of that, waste generation has continued to decline. In 2013, only 8,559 tons was generated daily, indicating 88% decrease compared to 1995. However, since 2013, the amount of daily municipal waste has been increasing again. We are projecting the reason behind such increase is in the dramatic shift of the Seoul's household structures. If we closely look into the types of municipal waste, almost 68% of that includes food waste, synthetic resins, paper, glass bottles, and metal cans. Among these, synthetic resin, including plastic, are the only types of the waste that have been on the rise since 2014. Given that, we view the decrease of household size in Seoul led to more consumption of small packages, generating more synthetic resin waste, which is used in packaging materials. In 2017, China banned on imported waste so that waste export route was strained, which caused a decrease in demand and most importantly, in price drop of synthetic resin waste. Waste vinyl had lower profits from recycling than disposal, causing private companies refusal of collection. To respond to refusal of waste vinyl collection, the Seoul Metropolitan Government announced the Plastic-Free Seoul Plan and prepared measures to reduce plastic waste. Plastic-Free Seoul aims to reduce disposable plastic usage by 50% and achieve 70% recycling. To lead the practice of zero disposable plastic use in public, the use and import of disposable cups and vinyl are prohibited from city-related private establishments. In addition, conditions that require inhibition on the usage of disposable supplies have been added when selecting private consignment agencies. To encourage private sector's participation, various campaigns and educational programs are being delivered to reduce the use of disposable cups and straws, plastic bags, delivery supplies, and laundry vinyl. Additionally, a memorandum of understanding has been signed with wholesale, retail stores, and various franchises to reduce disposable plastic usage. And the Seoul Metropolitan Government is providing administrative and financial support for this. You may also know that it's important to promote recycling so that waste becomes a resource again. As for waste vinyl, which has a low recycling rate due to impurities in vinyl, specific days for waste vinyl disposal and collection has been chosen to increase the recycling rate. In addition, the government installed an AI-based recycling robot providing citizens with special points that can be converted to cash for every can and bottles recycled. Thanks to these efforts, in 2020, disposable plastic used in cafes and markets each decreased by about 58% and 74% compared to 2018. However, due to COVID-19, as shown in the graph, in the first quarter of 2020 compared to the fourth quarter of 2019, household goods, groceries, agricultural and marine products rose by an average of 33%. Due to the increase in online transactions, waste plastic increased by 14.6% and waste vinyl by 11% within a year. COVID-19 has changed our lifestyles, and we are in need of a paradigm shift of existing waste policies. So the Seoul government believes if the role of the public focused on leading examples and inducing voluntary change in the private sector, it is now necessary to establish a reusable infrastructure to decrease plastic use in the private sector. In addition, private efforts to reduce waste should be focused on lifestyle and not specific items. As your products and packaging materials diversify, it will be difficult to keep up with such change by simply responding to items. Therefore, regardless of the type of waste, it would be more effective to focus on reducing waste generation. Additionally, focus on packaging waste generated from online distribution is definitely needed in the future. Finally, compared to the current focus on quantitative aspects of recycling, more emphasis should be put on the quality of recycling in the future. By increasing the value of recycled products, we expect increasing consumption of recycled products will likely reduce the amount of waste. Regarding the establishment of infrastructure to encourage the use of reusable products, the government plans to produce and distribute reusable cups to cafes and other facilities and foster professional reusable cup cleaning companies. Through this plan, the government plans to distribute reusable cups to all cafes in Seoul by 2025. In addition, Seoul plans to expand zero waste stores that sell products without packaging materials. In cooperation with large discount stores, Seoul aims to establish spaces exclusively for zero waste and support small shops in neighborhood and establish more than 1 zero waste stores in all administrative districts in Seoul by 2025. Next, Seoul plans to promote businesses such as large companies, universities, hospitals, and funeral halls to establish reduction plans that suit each condition. By evaluating the reduction result, excellent companies will be certified as excellent eco-friendly business. Packaging waste from online distribution should also be addressed in the future. Seoul plans to implement reusable boxes instead of disposable ones in cooperation with food delivery companies and expand the use of paper materials instead of vinyl. Additionally, the government is also planning to reduce the use of gel ice packs made of microplastics and expand the use of eco-friendly ice packs. Finally, in order to promote high-quality recycled products, Seoul plans to foster new industries and spread the culture of recycling resources, such as transparent PET bottles. The Seoul Upcycling Plaza was built in 2017 and will be developed into an upcycling hub and center. The Seoul Upcycling Plaza aims to spread the upcycling culture and enhance the upcycling industry and spread the demand for upcycled products. Lastly, Seoul is cooperating with plastic recycling and clothing companies to recycle transparent PET bottles to produce whole new but upcycled clothing. That's all from me. Hope you enjoyed my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kim. Oh, amazing, amazing what you're doing there, and really, really insightful case study for everyone, I'm sure. And there'll be, there are quite a few questions in the chat on that. One of the questions I think I'd like to ask you, because we're really used to the wording here of recycling, but not so much about upcycling. And I was curious to find out what the reason in Seoul City is why they've decided to support upcycling policies and not recycling. And if you could maybe expand on that a little, please.
그 업사이클링에 대해서 좀 더 구체적으로 좀 설명을 해주셨으면 합니다. 왜냐하면은 그 리사이클링이라는 말은 흔히 듣지만은 업사이클링이라는 말을 흔히 들어보지 못한 그 용어거든요. 그러니까 좀 그 서울시에서 왜 업사이클링 그 폴리시를 채택을 하게 됐는지, 그리고 그 구체적으로 그것이 무엇인지 좀 설명 부탁드립니다.
예, 일단 업사이클링이라 함은 폐기물에다가 특별한 재가공을 크게 거치지 않고 아이디어나 아니면 창의적인 디자인을 도입해 갖고 새로운 제품을 만드는 것을 말합니다.
By the definition of upcycling, we mean we are producing new products using the recycled material without adding any additional material to it.
재활용이 재활용보다 중요한 이유는 재활용의 경우에는 그 재활용 제품을 만드는 과정에 많은 에너지 또 시간 등과 같은 사회적인 자원이 소모가 됩니다.
Why we think regard upcycling more important than recycling is simply because we have to invest more time and energy and money in recycling than upcycling.
네, 반면에 업사이클링 같은 경우는 아이디어와 그리고 창의적인 디자인이 중심이 되는 것이기 때문에 재사용되는 주기도 짧고 또한 고부가 가치의 제품을 만들 수 있는 장점이 있습니다.
And whereas upcycling has an advantage such as having much value added and also actually using more ideas, more creative the design ideas, and and also reducing basic material.
이런 이유로 서울시 같은 경우는 재활용도 물론 중요하지만 앞으로는 재활용, 그러니까 업사이클링이 더 중요하다라고 생각을 하고 있습니다.
So for this reason, actually, Seoul city government is regarding the upcycling is much more important, the concept than recycling. We treat recycling also, as much as important as upcycling.
Yeah, thank you. It's a really interesting pivot, which really excites me because I always say to many people that we work with and do our behaviour change programs, if we can keep a material in use as long as possible without actually having to do anything more to it, but reuse that product, it obviously is much better for us from an environmental impact point of view. And it makes us more enablers with what we're doing rather than being reactive, we're proactive. I actually, Mr. Kim, I understand that you do walk the talk with what you do with upcycling. And I know that you have your true tumbler with you today. And I wonder if you'd like to share that with our participants. And I think you've worked it out that by replacing your cup of coffee every day, you are reducing, I think you said 50% of the single-use plastic use in Korea, which is really fantastic, and it's great that you're doing that. I know we've got quite a few questions in the chat, so please keep those questions coming in. And now I'd like to move on to Mr. Julian Craig. So Julian is the co-founder for ecoboxteq. And after witnessing the development of the first ecobox that was made by his uncle's company 8 years ago in France, Julian turned his passion over to his mission, which is to really make a difference with the environment. And Julian's business is co-founded with Carl Cunanan, who you will have seen was listed here to be speaking today. And Julian is going to be speaking on behalf of both of them. They're launching their new business, which is a process that redefines recycling plastic containers, like what Ian was mentioning about the container deposit scheme. And the transformation with the beverage container recycling, and it's not new, it's been around for decades, but his mission is to make it different as a truly circular economy process. So he's focusing on that, and I think you'll be quite interested to hear what he's talking about to really make it that the collection, the processing, the transporting and the manufacturing to really achieve 100% recycled plastic bottles. So it's my pleasure now to hand over to Julian.
Hi everyone, I'm Julian Craig, co-founder of eco박steku, and thank you again for having us today. So just a little bit of a background. Growing up in in France. Obviously, I can't really hide my accent anymore. And moving to Australia in 2014, I've really, I have to say, I've really spent a good portion of my free time, around the water. And it might sound very cliche, but this is actually why we're here today, because I've seen Plastic Ocean movie a few years back, and for me that was really a big eye opener to realize the huge impact of single-use plastic on the environment. I was kind of pretty shocked, like most of you who've seen it, but I did keep living my normal life without really changing my habits towards plastic. So I wanted to share with you a few numbers. If you can just go back to that previous slide, a few numbers that are quite interesting about plastic. So the first one is there's about 1 million plastic bottles that are sold every minute worldwide. The world use of plastic will double. So we're talking all plastic by 2040. And I think a lot of you have heard this one. By 2050, plastic in the ocean will outweigh fishes. So I think I wanted to focus a little bit more on Australia as well, to give you some understanding of what we're trying to achieve and where we're coming from. There's about 3.4 billion plastic bottles, just PET, that were consumed last year in Australia. There's an average redemption rate for the 5 states that currently have a container deposit scheme that is across the board for plastic 57%. So the 5 states are obviously South Australia, who, as Ian mentioned, has been running a container deposit scheme for over 40 years, Western Australia, Queensland, Northern Territory, and New South Wales. And also something important to mention, because Ian was also talking about that prior, there's an estimated economic loss of 420 million by not recovering these plastic bottles in Australia every year. So what's EcoBox? Where is it coming from? A bit of backstory again. At the end of 2014, I went back to France to visit my family, and that's when I kind of discovered the first prototype of the EcoBox. And at the time, I was going to the University of Queensland, and all I thought was, yes, that's a pretty cool machine, but I didn't put much more thought into it. And fast forward a few years, uni being finished and working in a few different jobs, and doing a fair bit of research and analysis on the Australian market, especially when the container deposit scheme have started to come along in a few more states. We thought with my business partner that it was time to act and find a scalable solution to fix an issue that will only increase if nothing different is done. So I'm obviously, if you can maybe switch to the next slide, I'm obviously not here today to criticize container deposit scheme. I'm actually here to say that it's a great thing that have been put in place. I think the container deposit scheme are really a fantastic initiative, because it engaged the community. It obviously reduced litter, it helped charity raise money, and so on. And I'm really here, well, I guess ecoboxtech, we're here to make it more accessible, better in a way, and achieve better recycling rates across the board. So I think one of the, if you can go back just the previous slide, what is really the solution we are offering? So plastic, as we know, won't stop tomorrow. And so we really wanted to find a solution for plastic bottle to stop going into our ocean, landfill, and potentially, kill wildlife. So it's about reusing the material to recreate bottles. We all know the old circular economy. A lot of people talk about it, but how can we make this a lot more efficient with this kind of product? So the EcoBox was created to really make the recovery of PET bottle originally convenient in a very sustainable way with minimal intervention. Let me kind of explain. So what this machine does is it pre-sort PET bottles, and through a shredding system, it basically transform bottle into what is called flakes. So if you can see me, I've got a glass here of flakes, which is about 8 bottles just fitting in that glass. So you know, this is the material that is ready for washing prior to being transformed into new bottles. So from a bottle to flakes to recycled resin to then a preform to make a bottle. So what is so different about what we do compared to some other reverse vending machine, which I think a lot of them are doing a great job already, is but the fact that we reduce the size by 1/20th. You know, with this in mind, these reverse vending machine can really be placed in a lot more convenient location without any effort, as the handling capacity is a lot higher than what is currently out there. So in very simple terms, you consume a bottle, you drop it in the ecobox, and from the ecobox, it is transported to a recycler or bottle manufacturer. Because of the flaking, we are able to transport 8 times more than compressed bottles. So that logistics side is really massive. So saying that as well, I was talking just before about circular economy. The flakes are obviously, there's no contamination. So we've got flakes that are a lot higher quality. There's no cross-contamination, as I said. And once it is washed, it can be turned into bottles again, into food grade PET. So in doing that as well, we reduce the carbon footprint massively in the process. It's really about a bottle to bottle. As Ian just said before, there's a difficulty. There's not necessarily the infrastructure in Australia at the moment to do this. So, you know, what I'm going to talk about in a second is what we've done so far to make this work here in Australia, and what we see will be the key effect and success of it. So as I was talking about, this concept has been running for quite a while in France, but obviously there's no scheme over there. So it's basically for them to create a market for it and reward the public with some sort of incentive. And what we've done the past year and a half here is come up with the solution, in addition to just PET, collecting other plastics like HDPE, colored PET, etc., and also aluminum cans, because we don't talk a lot about aluminum cans, but aluminum cans is also something that pollutes quite a lot and requires a lot of energy to reproduce a can from scratch. So the problem with all this is always about capturing these materials before they go to landfill. So, you know, one of the things that is happening with container deposit scheme coming along, Victoria is planning to have one starting in 2023. Everyone is really coming on board. Obviously, there seems to be a response to China saying no a few years ago to taking the world's waste. But someone like South Australia, as Ian was saying before, they've been running a container deposit scheme successfully for over 40 years. I think one of the key things is really to reduce the raw materials that are used to produce these bottles, and obviously reduce litter. So, you know, some of you might say or might think that recycling is not the end solution, but a bottle turned into a bottle uses really minimal energy and can be done up to 10 times before the quality is not there anymore. So to give you a couple of numbers, you know, for 1 ton of PET recycled through an ecobox, through the full circle, there's about 2.3 ton of CO2 emissions that are saved. So one of the talking with a few different recyclers in Australia, one of the issues that the recyclers are facing is the cross-contamination of waste. So it's quite difficult for a bottle to become a bottle again. You know, we've now found the right partner to use our PET flakes, and with the aim of obviously turning it into food grade again, to produce a bottle again, because that's how we want to close the circle, is from a bottle to make it a bottle again, and onshore as well. You know, if some of the Eastern European countries like Norway, for example, how are they able to maintain 95% recycling rate across the board? It's because there's redeeming container has become a big habit, but it is also very regulated. For businesses that sell beverages container, they have to take them back, generally via reverse vending machines. So obviously Norway, in terms of size, etc., is very different compared to Australia. Australia has a massive problem because it's so big. You know, Queensland is the size of France, for example. So it is a massive issue, and so that's one of the things we're trying to reduce is logistic in between, and maximizing that logistic. So this solution can obviously have an impact only at scale. And something I also quickly wanted to touch on, you know, there's a lot of large bottle manufacturers that have committed to use 100% recycled material in the next couple of years, or some have already started, but as of today, it is mainly coming from overseas. And you know, for it to be recycled onshore, we need to collect more from clean streams so the plastic can be reused again. Because at this stage, there's a lot of plastic that is being recycled here, but it's not being turned into bottle again, just because of that cross-contamination. So I guess one of the last thing I want to finish on, if you can switch to the last slide, please. To give you a bit of an idea and understanding of what I was talking about in terms of capacity and logistic, we've got a couple of solutions from indoor to outdoor, and you know, I think what is currently out there is already doing great. We're just saying that we need more, and we need to make it more accessible. So some of the solution out there already in Australia requires a lot of trucks to come and empty the machine. If sometimes it's multiple times a day. For us, what we want really to do is, you know, for an indoor solution, for example, you'd be collecting 3, 4, 5 times maximum a week, and an outdoor solution, we're talking 4 or 5 times a month only of logistics. So you know, for us, I want to kind of finish on it. It was really obvious that we partner with a foundation that relates to our common goal of keeping the environment and our ocean plastic free. You know, that's why we've partnered with Plastic Ocean Australasia. And when I just finish on with saying that, same as Ian has said before, it has to come from a behavior change, because you know, we can have a great technology, we can have all these process in place, but it's about having all of us doing the right thing, because at the end of the day, that's what will stop having containers going into landfill. So I hope that was helpful in giving you a little view on what's coming in the next few months.
Thanks, Julian. That was really, really good. And thanks for showing some examples as well in your jars and the flaking. And coming from a recycling background with my own family, I know that recycling is, we always talk about it being the very last frontier, the end of the line. And there's been some really interesting questions in the chat about that, which we'll get onto in a moment. I did want to ask you, though, a bit of a sort of a bigger picture question, which is obviously you're needing to scale up and you're going, you know, faster and obviously trying to move this forward in a different way to the current system. What do you need to be able to scale up to get this ramped up as fast as possible? Because obviously there's still millions of water bottles being produced all the time. Ideally, it'd be great if PET bottles were not produced anymore, but while we've still got millions and millions in the system, what do you need to get this going for ramping up?
I was just going to rebound on, there's actually billions and billions. So yeah, it might not be the end solution, but we think that there's going to be plastic bottles still around for quite some time, and we need to fix that problem now. You know, if in 15 years there's no need for EcoBox and there's other solutions out there that we don't need to worry about plastic bottles anymore, that would actually be a great thing. But as of today, we need to fix that problem. And for us, you know, as you can imagine, it's not just about placing a machine and see you later. There's a lot of moving parts. It will take us another few months until you guys can see your first site to redeem your plastic bottles and aluminum cans. But you know, it is obviously regulated by government agencies, so we have to go through that process of accreditation, et cetera. For us to scale up, it's really about finding the right partners to make it work, because we're not the only one in this circle, and we have to find the right partners, which we've partially already done, and partners that have a new way of approaching plastic recycling, because you know, you need some kind of innovative companies that are willing to get out of their comfort zone. Sorry, I would say, because to change a little portion of their process, we also need obviously the right avenues to place these RVMs. There's a lot going on, but there's a lot of discussion going on at the moment. And as I said, we've found a lot of good people that will be part of this project. And again, to make it work, it has to be at scale. But again, it comes from behavior change.
Sure.
That's really where it comes from.
Absolutely.
I'll just finish on by saying that we will make it as easy for people as possible to access these recycling points. We'll make it as many as needed for people to access them as well. But it all comes down to having people doing this the right thing.
Thank you. And look, I think we're getting close to time, so I think we might only be able to ask one question to each of the speakers. And I know that Sharon's been looking in the chat line as we've been going. And Sharon, I don't know if you wanted to pick out one question for each of our speakers.
Absolutely, Ricky. I will speak now. So, Ian, can you answer about the caddy? There was a question from one of the participants in the webinar wanting to know if the caddy itself was made from recycled plastic.
Yes, absolutely. There's a company in South Australia that uses the bottles that are taken back from the container deposit scheme from those pellets, and creates those caddies, and also our street bins as well, using recycled content.
Oh, that is fabulous. And a question, this one is for yourself, Ian, but I'm also going to ask the other speakers to answer from their perspective next, because a really big component coming across the chat channel was around contamination and what proportion of recycled product are we losing because people still don't recycle correctly.
An awful amount. We're only recycling about 3% of our plastic, I believe, in Australia. I've gave numbers on the food waste. Only about 13% of household food waste is collected. So there's a lot to work there. I think some areas are good, but I think on the whole, we're still got a huge step change that we need to do in Australia.
Thank you. And if I now pass that question across to Mr. Kim to get a Korean perspective, please.
일단은 앞서 발표한 종량제 방식으로 배출되는 것들은 대부분 재활용되지 않는다고 보시면 되고, 그 양이 전체의 한 30% 정도 되고요.
Yeah. As I mentioned before, all the recycled material who went through the system we call the pay as you discard, they are not actually they are not end up being recycled. It comprises of 30% of total waste.
네, 그리고 재활용으로 분리 배출된 것 중에서도 한 15%에서 20% 정도는 지금 재활용이 되지 못하고 있습니다.
Even among the materials, the separated and regarded as the waste to be recycled. 몇 퍼센트라 했죠?
한 15에서 20% 정도.
Yeah, between 15 and 25%. are not being recycled currently in Seoul.
That is absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, Mr. Kim, and thank you so much for presenting in English today. Your English is much better than my Korean, so we couldn't have done it without you. Thank you.
네, 제 한국어보다 영어로 훨씬 더 프레젠테이션 오늘 잘하셨습니다. 참여해 주셔서 감사합니다.
감사합니다.
Thank you.
And my last question is for you, Julian. There's been so much chatter in the channel with questions raised around, can bottles be sent in with their lids? Does that then all get recycled together, and around the colour? So if you wouldn't mind speaking a little bit to that point, that would be great.
Of course. I was actually just, while you guys were talking, I was reading through these comments. So first thing first, yes, the machine accepts the lids. Obviously, it is part of it is considered contamination, so is the label. However, it gets separated, and that's why we need, top of technology in terms of recyclers. What technology they use to actually clean those flakes and actually separate the closure with the rest of the PET. PET will float in the water. PP will go on the water. And so in terms of colors, there's obviously I've seen a question, I think, from Keith. There was a question around whether we take only clear or colored, and obviously to make it a bottle to bottle, we have to look at clear only. Colored is unfortunately not recyclable to make it a colored bottle again. So we obviously gonna accept clear PET, and this is gonna be separated and shredded on its own. So there's no cross-contamination in here, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you so much, Julian. I'm going to hand back to Ricky, who will close out our session today. Over to you, Ricky.
Thanks so much. Oh, so much information, and we could talk, I think, for a long time on all of this. It just opens up another can of worms and another box of tricks for us to all work through. I do, of course, would like to propose a vote of thanks to our three amazing speakers today, and also my co-host Sharon and the amazing team behind the scenes that work with us to deliver our No Time to Waste series. As you know, we like to stay on time, and we also are very conscious of the fact that we have no time to waste with moving forward with the work that we're doing. Our next event, which you can see on the screen, is coming up already on Wednesday, the 28th of July. And that's going to be market systems, case studies and highlighting business to business, collaboration through innovation technology, and models of strategies and methods focusing on in this space that we're talking about. So the three speakers, I'm pleased to announce our three speakers for the next session, and there'll be a link available to go on to in the next several days to register for this. Is Miss Christine Hodgkiss from Veolia, and she's the Development Director for Australia and New Zealand. We've got Dr. Unan Jung, who's the Senior Researcher at Korea Institute of Construction Technology and Food Waste Recycling. And we also have Richard Romanowski, who's the Executive Director and Co-founder of Electric Energy. And he's going to be speaking about advanced power electronics, integrating artificial intelligence with software applications for next generation smart grids. So that's all those three are going to be very, very interesting. And I'm sure you'll find that we hope as interesting and helpful as what we've done today. As I mentioned at the beginning, this session is being recorded, and it will be available for people to see on both the Social Marketing at Griffith's YouTube channel and also the Plastic Oceans YouTube channel. And of course, if you'd like to contact Sharon or myself or any of the speakers today, please let us know, and we can give you their contact email, and you can make contact with people and also with yourselves. And we really thank you so much for joining us and taking the time. I hope you have a really good rest of the day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.